All right, everyone. Today we're talking population pyramids. I left you in the capable hands of my best-looking substitute teacher. Everyone wave to him right now. Tell him how much you like his class and how great he is. I'll wait. Okay, just kidding. It's me. I'm here in class and I'm here in your headphones. I'm double in your face right now. So basically, we're going to do some online lecture notes on population pyramids. You saw this at the end of the video on India and Japan. And what population pyramids allow us to do is measure population on a deeper level than just total number. They can give us lots of information, including changes, which is something you don't get if you're just looking at a map. So we'll get right into it. The first thing you need to know is that these graphs are broken up into cohorts. A cohort is one of those little bars, and it's basically an age group of broken up by 5 years. So in this case, anyone who's 0 to 5 is this bottom bar, anyone who's 5 to 10 is the second bar, and all the way up to 100. Those cohorts tell us the population of that aged person in that country or place or world. So if you look at this one particularly, you'll see that at the bottom there are more people who are 0 to 4 than there are 100. If you look on the left side, you'll see that it's men, and on the right side, you'll see that it's women. Unfortunately, they are generally broken up into super heteronormative coloring. We're working on it, I guess, as geographers, but there you go. The bar is graphed into, oh my gosh, that's terrible. So it's a bar graph based on total population, so the actual number, but sometimes you'll see it in percentage as well. So you should write that in your notes. Sometimes it'll be percentage of population, sometimes it will be total of population. So right now what I'd like you to do is when I say go, you're going to pause your video and you're going to discuss with your partner 2 things you notice about the United States population, right? Obviously there are more young people than old people, but what else do you notice on this map that might be a little more interesting? Go ahead, pause now, find 2 things and write them down. Cool. Welcome back. Good job. I'm sure you all did fantastically. I was probably there being uncomfortable in the front ringing the bell or something. So let's take a look at the world. We look at the United States, we see it's kind of like this frumpy thing with the baby boom in the middle. But if you look at the world population, it's a much smoother kind of pyramid shape. And you can see that basically the world is getting much, much bigger in a population and pretty split evenly between men and women. Another thing you need to know about these population pyramids is a term called a baby boom. And a baby boom is when one of the populations just juts out more than the other one. This is our U.S. population. And when everyone came back from World War II, they came back, they were very excited, and they had lots of babies. They felt good about the world. So then they created a big bump in baby producers or in people. So right now they're going to be our 40 to 50-year-olds, but at the time of this graph, it looks like they were a little bit younger. So that's our baby boom population, and you should know what a baby boom is. Yeah, it's from 1945 to 1960, a large group of babies that happen at once. The next thing you need to know is called sex ratio, and basically it's just the number of males per 100 females. So to get that number, you take the United States, you take the number of women, the number of men, and you divide it by the number of women. If we look at the U.S., if we see this, it looks pretty even, but if you could kind of get in there with a micrometer or something, you'd see that there's a sex ratio of 0.97. So for every 1 female, there's 0.97 males. So women, it's your country, right? You run the show. Gentlemen, we're outnumbered, so be nice. So if we look at the world gender ratio on a map, we see something interesting, right? Again, these kind of pink is girls and blue is men. That's just the way the maps are. You see that countries that tend to be more educated and have better and don't have gender preferences, like the United States, we try not to care about which babies we have. We generally don't. Women tend to last longer because on average women live longer than men. But you can see these dark blue countries, like if you look at East China or India, which you can see there's some inducted data on there. If we look at those, we know that the Chinese culture, for example, has a gender preference toward males, which means that if they can, they're going to have male babies and maybe give up female babies, which is really depressing. So the male ratio is higher. When we kind of leave it alone, the female ratio is going to be higher. And that's based on development generally. More developed countries have a higher female ratio generally, and less developed countries have a lower female or lower gender ratio. The next thing we can measure is what's called the dependency ratio. And the dependency ratio is just the number of people who can work or the number of people who don't work divided by the number of people who can work, right? So we're looking at who's too old or too young to work divided by the people who are the right age. So basically, all the people who don't work are divided by the ones who can. So it's anyone under 15 and anyone over 15 times 100. And then we divide that by the people who can work, the percentage of people 15 to 64. That looks complicated, but it's really not. So what do we look at when we see the United States? Well, we have a dependency ratio of 53.8, which is it's pretty solid. So there are 54 persons for every 100 persons who can work in the United States. The next thing you really need to know on these population pyramids is that the shapes are the most important part. Like, can you parse out really interesting data? Yes. Should you without looking at the shapes? Absolutely not. The shapes show us the trends in cultures and different places. So if we take a look at this far right one, anything that's pyramid shaped-ish is growing. A rapid growth is going to spread out way at the bottom, and a slow growth, which is the second from the right, is going to kind of slowly go out. A stable population, and we look after the old people because old people die, nothing we can do about that. But a stable population, you could go from about the age 45 down, and you would see that you could draw a straight line down, and there'd be some changes, but not big changes. So this would be a stable population. And on the far left, we have a declining population. So if you think of Japan, for example, you can see it starting to do like a cone situation at the bottom and start coming in on itself. The great example here, Japan, and we'll have a quiz, hint, hint, on this tomorrow. So if you're at stable population, what's called ZPG, or zero population growth. You also have negative population growth and positive population growth. So if we take here at some examples, it's kind of hard to tell. Look at the state of California. Now, we know it's growing, but it's hard to tell because we had a big old baby boom bump. But if you erase that baby boom bump, you'd see that we're more in a triangular shape. Some are really obvious, though. If you take a look at this bottom one, I think it's Utah. Utah's blowing up like crazy, right? It's kind of almost a full triangle. And what can they tell us about growth? Well, now we know that people are moving to Utah, or that it's becoming safer to live there. I don't know. There are less cowboys. I don't really know what goes on in Utah. And then these can also tell us about different communities. If you look at this top one that looks like an airplane, that's a college community, right? Most of the people who live in a college community go to college, so they're ages 19 to 23 or whatever. If you look at the bottom left, there's a military base. You can see there are more men than women, and they're all of a certain age. If you look at the bottom, I think it says it's an old folks home or retirement community. Look, everyone's old. Hardly anyone is young, and it sucks to be the 4-year-old who lives there. I see there at the bottom. So the different shapes tell us different things. On the last thing, you can see some more examples. And we talked about India. So India, look at the male population, severely outweighing the female, but also it kind of looks like their growth period might be coming to a close, right? They might be leveling off. Can we make certain guesses? No, not really. So under your case study, India, their population growth is probably leveling off, but really for now, it's a question mark. The next thing you're going to do is move to the videos on India. We're going to watch a video together of what the climate is doing to population growth. So when you're done with this, go ahead and stand up and ring the bell that's in the front of the class so I know you're done. Take out some notes and be ready to move on. Sound good?